I have a tendency to forget to wear underwear. Let me back up. I grew up in Arizona, lived here all my life. So a good portion of my life was spent in the swimming pool. So I had swim trunks. So I didn't wear underwear about half the year. So that's why I have a tendency to forget to wear it sometimes. I'm also quite absent minded. I tell people all the time now that I'm a professor, I am literally the absent minded professor. But it was never really a big problem that I would forget to wear underwear um, because I lived in Arizona and it was hot and, no big deal. That being said, it did become an issue if I would forget when I moved to Iowa to attend UNI. It got really cold sometimes, and as we all know, sometimes the cold wind would right up your pants, and yeah, that would be very, 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 very cold. The reason I bring this up isn't to horrify you or make you throw open your mouth or any of those things, but it's because it is a very distinct thing I remember about the story I'm going to tell you. So I remember the day very clearly. It was a pretty typical day in the fall, and I got up and I was living at the time with Margaret, who was the head coach of the speech team, and she always went in very early, and I usually went in 10, o'clock, 9 o'clock, something like that. And so it was one of those days. She had already left, and I obviously had forgot to wear underwear, but didn't realize that till later. Clearly, got in my truck, headed to good old UNI. Now at this time I lived in Waterloo, so it was a little bit of a drive, but really not much of one at all. At this point we had moved from, God, I don't remember the name of the creepy little place that we were at before. The sort of concrete jungle to Lang Hall, which was beautiful, bright, shiny. That was where we were now at this point. And I was very lucky because there weren't enough faculty members. So I, as a graduate assistant, got my own office, and it was a corner office. Still not sure how I got that. But I was the graduate assistant for the speech team, so I convinced everyone that I needed my own office because I had to coach these students, and I needed all the space, and I don't know why, but they bought it. So I was on my way to Lang Hall, and I have a tendency to uh, love silence when I drive. I don't like putting on music. Nowadays I don't really listen to podcasts on the way. I really enjoy the silence, and I think for a lot of teachers that's probably the case because you're hearing stuff all day. So I like the silence. So silent drive to work, and I got to Lang Hall, and I think that day I got a pretty good parking spot. There is that parking lot right out front, and sometimes you're lucky and you got a spot out there. I believe I got a spot that day, and I went to one end of the school. And what was interesting is I knew on this particular day um, that Margaret, my roommate, would be teaching. She'd be teaching at this time, and I always walked by her class, and was the good friend and caring roommate. I always looked in to see how she was doing, and sometimes wave if she was up there. So I got up to the floor and walked by, and I saw that the room was dark, and there was a sign on the door, and so I was like, well, that's weird, because I was like, if she's sick, why isn't she home? So I walked up to the door, and there was a note that said, class canceled due to national tragedy. And I was like, what the hell is she talking about? What national tragedy? I mean, that's okay, whatever. So I go down to my office and I get in, and we're supposed to have some students for a coaching session. I think that's why I came in a little bit earlier. But I don't remember what exactly happened with them. But I was sitting in my office, and this is before, we all had our phones all the time, and Twitter and Facebook and all that sort of stuff. So I was just kind of in my office, and really nothing was going on. And it seemed dead. Like it just completely dead. Nobody was really around. It was very, very strange. And so I got up out of my office and I went and walked over towards the main communication office. So I go to walk in there, and I don't know if it's still like this, but there were these two sort of wooden doors and they had these big glass windows. And I remember I walked around the corner and I saw through the glass windows one of those televisions that is on like the tray. Like, remember in grade school, they would wheel it in on the day to watch a video or something like this? So this big TV on this black metal tray and a VCR and stuff. And that has a very distinct memory attached to it for me. I'm old enough that I remember the Challenger exploding. And I remember exactly, like everybody, I remember exactly where I was when that happened. I was helping, it was picture day, so I was in the library, and we found out about it and started watching it on this big TV on a metal tray, just like the one that I saw in the communication office. And so I instantly knew okay, I should have known there was something wrong when I read a note saying that a national tragedy had happened, but I just thought Margaret was being dramatic. Hey, we're all dramatic. So right then, I was like, something's wrong. And I walk into the office and see the few people who are there, it's still pretty empty, that they're all quite mournful. And I look at the TV and see that the Twin Towers in New York are basically on fire. And that is where I was when 9/11 happened. I was basically on my way to school, not listening to the news, no underwear, and just completely oblivious to all of it. And so, I remember just being in shock, not knowing what was going on, and going, all right. Oh, I do. I had to call my students and let them know that, coaching was going to be canceled for the day. I think maybe we met up or something. I don't remember it exactly. If you ever know Nikki Bapp, talk to her. She'll remember. She's a great memory. It was her and another girl was their duo. I do remember that for some reason. So I went home, and Margaret was there, and we basically sat on the couch for the rest of the day and watched the coverage. And a couple interesting things happened that day on the couch with Margaret watching. First off, this senator got up and started talking, and he was so powerful, and he was so energetic, and he was so calm but remorseful and sad, and you could tell that this was something that really affected him. And but he was also powerful. He was very much like, we're going to do something about this. And he was a Democrat, so it was kind of a little strange at the time how forceful he was. And I remember Margaret and I talking to each other and saying, God, that guy needs to be president one day. And sure enough, it was Joe Biden who was talking. So it's really interesting, comparing to today. The other thing I remember very specifically was at one point we were sitting there, and is when President Bush came out to talk, and we were silent, and President Bush started talking, and all of a sudden Margaret turns to me and goes, we're all gonna die. And it was just totally matter of fact, like we were gonna completely die, no big deal. So yeah, that was really, really scary. But I got her back because Margaret had a tendency to, when she was cold or nervous, she would take her feet and she would put them under my butt because I have a big butt, so it would keep her warm. But to this day, she doesn't know that on that somewhat chilly Iowa evening, 9/11, her feet were just a very thin piece of denim away from my bare butt.